Growing up, my dad was my hero. He wasn't just my father, he was my best friend, my biggest cheerleader, and the one person I believed could never hurt me. Some kids idolize superheroes in movies, but my superhero lived under the same roof as me. Every morning before school, he'd make me pancakes shaped like hearts or stars. On weekends, we had this ritual, going to the park, just the two of us. He'd push me on the swing so high I felt like I could touch the clouds, and when I got scared, he'd laugh and say, "Don't worry, kiddo. Daddy's here. I'll never let you fall." Those words, "I'll never let you fall," they meant everything to me. I clung to them like a promise etched into stone. Because, in my eyes, my dad wasn't just a parent. He was the definition of love and safety. My mom used to joke that I loved him more than I loved her. She wasn't wrong. Dad had this way of making everything feel lighter. If I got a bad grade on a test, he'd say, "Grades don't define you, sweetheart. You're smart in ways that matter." When I got into fights with friends, he'd listen, nodding like every word I said was important, and then offer the kind of advice that made everything feel fixable. And birthdays? Oh, he went all out. He'd spend weeks planning scavenger hunts around the house with little clues leading to my gift. He made me feel like the most important person in the world. But life isn't a movie where everything stays perfect forever. Because sometimes, the people who make the biggest promises are the ones who break them in ways you never see coming. It started small, so small that if you asked me back then, I'd tell you everything was fine. But looking back now, I see the cracks. Dad started coming home later than usual. At first, he said it was work. "Deadlines, kiddo. Gotta keep the lights on," he'd say, ruffling my hair. Mom didn't argue, at least not in front of me, but I could feel the tension. The way she'd stay up on the couch, arms crossed, scrolling endlessly on her phone, waiting for him. I asked her once, "Is everything okay?" And she forced a smile. "Of course, honey. Daddy's just busy." But her eyes told a different story. Then, there were the missed traditions. The Saturday park trip stopped. Our pancake breakfast became frozen waffles I made myself. And my birthday that year? No scavenger hunt. Just a gift card and a half-hearted "Happy birthday, kiddo," before he rushed off to a meeting. I told myself it was just a phase. Adults get busy. Work gets crazy. Things change. But deep down, I missed him. I missed us. Then came the night that changed everything. It was a Friday. Mom was working late, and I was supposed to be at my best friend Emily's house for a sleepover. But plans fell through, and instead of calling Dad, I decided to surprise him at work. I thought maybe we could grab dinner, just the two of us, like old times. I took the bus downtown, rehearsing in my head how happy he'd be to see me. But when I walked into his office building, the receptionist gave me a puzzled look. "He left hours ago," she said. That didn't make sense. It was barely 6 p.m. "Are you sure?" I asked. She nodded. "Positive." My stomach twisted. If he wasn't at work, where was he? I tried calling him, but it went straight to voicemail. I thought about going home, but some gut feeling, told me to wait. I sat outside the building for almost an hour, scrolling on my phone, telling myself I was overreacting. Then I saw him. He wasn't alone. Dad walked out of the parking garage laughing, his arm draped casually around a woman I'd never seen before. And next to her were two kids. A little boy who looked about 5, and a girl who couldn't have been older than 3. They piled into a black SUV like a picture-perfect family. My dad opened the door for the woman, kissed her on the cheek, and then buckled the little boy into his car seat like he'd done for me a million times before. I froze. My brain couldn't process what my eyes were seeing. My dad, the man who promised he'd never let me fall, had an entire other family. And in that moment, something inside me cracked so loudly I swear I could hear it. Everything I believed about love, loyalty, and family shattered in a single night. I don't even remember the walk home. My legs moved, but my brain felt. empty, like someone had just ripped the ground out from under me, and I was falling into a bottomless pit. I replayed the scene over and over. Dad laughing, kissing that woman, holding those kids. Kids who looked at him like I used to. Like he was their hero too. How long had this been going on? Did Mom know? Did everyone know, but me? When I finally got home, the house was dark. Mom's car wasn't in the driveway yet. I ran straight to my room and slammed the door shut before the tears hit. And oh, they hit hard. I buried my face in my pillow and cried until my throat burned. Every memory, the park trips, the scavenger hunts, the pancakes, felt like a lie now. Were they even real? Or was he playing the role of perfect dad while living a double life the whole time? By the time Mom got home, I'd wiped my face raw with tissues. She knocked on my door softly. "Sweetheart, you okay?" I swallowed hard, forcing my voice to sound normal. "Yeah, just tired." I couldn't tell her. Not yet. How do you even start that conversation? "Hey Mom, just so you know, Dad's got a secret family living a few miles away." I didn't sleep that night. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, thinking about every time he said, "I'll always be here for you." Those words used to feel like a hug. Now they felt like a joke. The next morning, I avoided him completely. I heard his voice downstairs, laughing like nothing had happened, and it made me sick. I waited until he left before coming down for breakfast. Mom noticed. "You're quiet," she said, handing me a bowl of cereal. "Just tired," I mumbled again. She gave me this long look, like she wanted to say something, but didn't. And then, things got worse. On Monday, I decided to test him. When he picked me up from school, I asked casually, "Busy weekend?" "Yeah," he said without hesitation. "Work stuff. Boring meetings." "You didn't miss anything." "Work stuff. Meetings." I wanted to scream. Instead, I smiled and said, "Cool." But inside, the anger started boiling. He was lying to my face, like I was some clueless kid, like I didn't deserve the truth. I started noticing everything after that: the extra cologne, the constant texting, the way he smiled at his phone like it held secrets just for him. I couldn't keep it in anymore. That Friday night, when Mom was making dinner and Dad was scrolling through his phone on the couch, I snapped. "Who are they?" I blurted out. He looked up, confused. "Who are who?" "The other family." My voice cracked, but I kept going. "The woman. The two kids. The ones you were with last week." The color drained from his face. His phone slipped from his hand and hit the floor with a dull thud. Mom froze at the stove, turning slowly like she couldn't believe what she'd just heard. "What did you just say?" I felt my heart pounding in my chest. "I saw him," I whispered. "I saw you, Dad. You were with them. You kissed her." The silence that followed was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. Mom's voice broke at first. Low, sharp, like a knife. "Is this true?" Dad opened his mouth, closed it, then opened it again. "Honey, I can explain." "Explain?" Mom's voice was shaking now. "Explain what?" "That you've been cheating on me? That you have a whole other family?" Tears burned my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I wanted answers. I wanted the truth. "How long?" I demanded. "How long have you been lying to us?" He looked at me, really looked at me, and for the first time in my life, I didn't recognize the man staring back. "A while," he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. "A while." That's all I got. Two words that broke my heart into 1,000 pieces. Mom lost it. She started yelling, throwing accusations like daggers. Dad tried to calm her down, saying things like, "It's complicated, and I didn't mean for it to happen." But I wasn't listening anymore. Because in that moment, I realized something. The dad who promised he'd always be there for me, he was gone. Maybe he was never real. Maybe he was just a character in a story I told myself to feel safe. I ran to my room and slammed the door, drowning out the sound of their voices as they tore each other apart downstairs. And as I sat there, shaking and sobbing, one thought kept replaying in my head like a broken record. If he could lie about this, what else was he hiding? I didn't come out of my room that night. Not even when Mom knocked softly and whispered, "Sweetheart, please eat something." I just curled up in bed, clutching my pillow like it could hold me together when everything else was falling apart. Downstairs, I could hear them arguing. Voices rising, then crashing into silence, then rising again. Words like betrayal, "How could you?" and "the kids" floated up the stairs like daggers aimed straight at my heart. The next morning, Dad was gone. No note. No goodbye. Just gone. Mom sat at the kitchen table with her head in her hands, a cold cup of coffee in front of her. Her face looked hollow, like someone had reached in and stolen the light from her eyes. I stood there in the doorway, not knowing what to say. Finally, she looked up. Her voice was raw, cracked. "Do you want to talk about it?" I shook my head. Because what was there to say? That I hated him? That I loved him so much it hurt? That I didn't know who I was anymore because half of me came from a liar? So, I didn't talk. Not that day. Not the day after. But the world doesn't stop when your life shatters. I still had school, homework, friends who kept texting, "You okay?" And I kept lying back, "Yeah, just tired." The truth was, I wasn't tired. I was broken. Then one afternoon, everything changed again. I was walking home from school when a black SUV pulled up next to me. For a split second, I panicked until the window rolled down and I saw him. "Dad, get in," he said softly. I froze. "Why?" "Please, kiddo. Just let me explain." Every cell in my body screamed, "Don't do it." But I got in anyway. Because no matter how much I hated him, I still wanted answers. I still wanted my dad. We drove in silence for a while. My hands were fists in my lap. Finally, I said, "Who are they?" He gripped the steering wheel tighter. "Her name is Claire. The kids are Ethan and Lily." I swallowed hard. "How long?" "5 years," he whispered. 5 years. My stomach dropped. I was 13 now. That meant they'd existed since I was 8. Since the year he promised me we'd go to Disney and then work got in the way. Since the year Mom cried in the bathroom and said it was just stress. "You have 2 lives," I said, my voice shaking. "2 families." "Why?" He didn't answer right away. Then, because I was selfish. Selfish. That word tasted like poison. "I never planned for this to happen," he said. "I loved your mom. I love you. But then, I met Claire, and things got complicated." "Complicated?" I snapped. "You mean you cheated?" His jaw tightened. "I didn't want to hurt anyone." "You didn't want to hurt anyone?" I laughed bitterly. "You destroyed everything." He pulled over, turned to me with tears in his eyes, the same eyes I had. "I'm sorry, kiddo. I'm so sorry. But sorry didn't fix anything. Sorry didn't make the screaming stop at home. Sorry didn't erase the image of him buckling another kid into a car seat like he used to do for me." "Take me home," I whispered. The rest of the ride was silent. When we got there, I slammed the door and didn't look back. That night, Mom told me the truth I didn't want to hear. She sat on the edge of my bed, her hands trembling. "I didn't want you to find out like this," she said. "You knew?" My voice cracked like glass. Her eyes filled with tears. "I found out 2 years ago." 2 years. 2 years. She'd been living with this, smiling through it, pretending everything was normal, while I was out here worshiping a man who didn't deserve it. "Why didn't you tell me?" I choked. "Because I wanted to protect you," she whispered. "I didn't want you to hate your father." Too late for that. In that moment, something inside me snapped. Not at her, but at the entire idea of family, trust, love. None of it felt real anymore. I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, and thought, if the person I trusted most in the world could betray me like this, how can I ever trust anyone again? But life wasn't done with me yet. Because the next time I saw Dad, it wasn't by choice. It was because he showed up at our front door with a suitcase. And a decision that would rip my heart apart all over again. It was a Saturday morning, and for once, the house was quiet. Mom was in the kitchen making coffee, and I was pretending to read on the couch, even though the words on the page blurred together. My chest still felt heavy from everything that had happened. Then the doorbell rang. Mom froze. She glanced at me, then slowly walked to the door. When she opened it, I heard his voice before I saw him. Please, Laura, just hear me out. Mom didn't say a word, just stepped aside. And then he walked in, my dad with his head down like a guilty criminal, holding a suitcase in one hand. I sat up, my book slipping from my fingers. What's that? He looked at me with this sad smile, like he thought a soft expression could fix what he broke. Hey, kiddo. Don't call me that. I snapped, my voice sharper than I meant. His smile faltered. I need to explain. You've had plenty of time to explain, Mom cut in, her voice cold like steel. Now you're just here to tell us what you've decided. My stomach twisted. Decided? What was she talking about? Dad put the suitcase down and ran a hand through his hair. I didn't want this to happen. I never wanted to hurt you or her or... His voice cracked. Or the kids. The kids. Ethan and Lily. Their names tasted like acid in my mouth. Mom crossed her arms. So, what is it, Mark? Who do you choose? Because you can't have both anymore. I looked between them, my heart pounding so loud I could barely hear my own thoughts. This was it. The moment that would decide everything. Dad's eyes darted to me. For a split second, I hoped he would fight for us. That he would choose me. That all those promises weren't just empty words. But then he said the words that broke me completely. I have to be with them. It was like the air got sucked out of the room. Mom didn't flinch. She just nodded like she'd expected it. But me? I felt like someone had ripped my chest open. You're leaving? My voice was barely a whisper. He stepped toward me, reaching out like he thought he had the right to touch me. Kiddo, don't call me that, I shouted, jerking back like his hands were made of fire. You promised. You said you'd never let me fall, remember? You lied. Tears blurred my vision, hot and angry and endless. Do they make you better pancakes, Dad? Do they laugh at your stupid jokes more than I did? Is that it? Sweetheart, it's not like that. Then what is it like? I demanded, my voice shaking so hard it hurt. You get to play hero in 2 houses now? Guess what? You're not my hero anymore. You're nothing. His face crumpled, but I didn't care. I didn't want to see his pain. I wanted him to feel mine. Every shattered piece of my heart. Mom finally spoke, her voice sharp as glass. You made your choice. Now, get out. He hesitated, like he thought there was still a chance. But when I turned my back on him, when I refused to look, he picked up his suitcase and walked out the door. And just like that, the man who once promised he'd always be there was gone. The silence after he left was unbearable. Mom sat at the table with her hands shaking, and I stood in the middle of the living room, feeling like my entire world had just collapsed in slow motion. I thought that was the worst part, that he chose them. That he walked away. But I was wrong. Because the real worst part? It came a week later when I found out what his new life looked like. And how little space there was for me in it. It started with a photo. I wasn't looking for it. I swear I wasn't. But one night, while scrolling on Instagram, I saw his face in the suggested for you section. His profile wasn't private. And there it was. A picture of him holding Lily on his shoulders, smiling like the dad I used to know. The caption? Family day with my world. My world. Not me. Not us. Then, my stomach turned as I scrolled. There were more pictures, at the park, at a birthday party, even at the zoo. Him and Claire, arm in arm. Him kissing her cheek. Him laughing with Ethan. He looked happy. Happier than he'd been with us in years. And that's when it hit me like a freight train. He didn't just leave. He replaced us. That night, I threw my phone across the room and screamed into my pillow until my voice gave out. How do you move on when the person you loved most in the world chooses someone else? When every promise, every memory, every I love you turns into a lie you can't unhear? I didn't know then. Honestly, I still don't. But I knew one thing. I couldn't keep this inside anymore. I needed to tell someone. I needed someone to understand what this felt like, because if I didn't, I was going to drown in it. So, the next day, I told Emily. And saying the words out loud was like ripping open a wound I'd been trying to pretend didn't exist. She cried with me. She hugged me. She told me none of this was my fault. But late that night, lying in bed staring at the ceiling, I couldn't stop thinking. If it wasn't my fault, then why does it feel like I wasn't enough to make him stay? The days after Dad left blurred into one endless loop of gray. School felt meaningless. Food tasted like cardboard. Even music, the thing that always saved me, couldn't drown out the echo of his words. I have to be with them. It played on repeat in my head, like a cruel soundtrack to a life I didn't recognize anymore. Mom tried. She really did. She made my favorite dinners, left little notes in my lunchbox like she used to when I was a kid. But every time I looked at her, I saw the same brokenness I felt inside. And it made me angry at her, at him, at everything. We barely spoke. Not because we hated each other, but because neither of us knew what to say. What words could fix this? What sentence could glue together the shards of a family ripped in half? Then, one night, it all came crashing down. It was a Thursday. I was sitting on my bed scrolling mindlessly when my phone buzzed with a new notification. Dad posted a photo. I didn't want to look. God, I didn't. But my finger betrayed me. The photo loaded, and my chest imploded. There he was, grinning ear to ear, holding a cake that said, "Congrats, Daddy," in bright blue icing. Behind him, Claire and the kids were clapping. And the caption? Another one on the way. Feeling blessed to grow our family. Another one. Another child. Another reason for him to forget I even exist. I stared at that photo until my vision blurred, and then something inside me snapped. I threw the phone across the room so hard it cracked against the wall. Then I screamed, a raw, guttural sound that tore out of me before I could stop it. Mom burst into my room, her face pale with worry. "What happened?" she gasped. And that was it. That was the moment the dam broke. All this time, I sobbed, my voice shaking so violently it didn't sound like mine. He said I was his world. He said he'd always be there. And now he's out there having another kid like I don't even exist. Tears streamed down my face, hot and relentless. What's wrong with me, Mom? Why wasn't I enough? Why wasn't our family enough? She rushed to me, pulling me into her arms like she could physically hold the pieces of me together. Her own tears soaked my hair as she whispered over and over, "Oh, sweetheart. It was never about you. Never. This is his failure, not yours." But I shook my head, choking on sobs. "Then why does it hurt so much?" "Because you loved him," she whispered, her voice breaking. "And love doesn't just disappear, even when people fail us." We stayed like that for what felt like hours, crying until there were no tears left. For the first time since it all started, I let her in. I let myself lean on her instead of carrying the weight alone. And that night, I realized something. Maybe Dad broke us. Maybe he walked away. But I still had someone who stayed. Someone who chose me every single day. The weeks that followed weren't magical. They weren't easy. Healing isn't some pretty montage set to music. It's ugly. It's crying in the shower so no one hears you. It's scrolling past photos of the life you thought you'd have and feeling your stomach twist. But slowly, So slowly, I almost didn't notice. I started to breathe again. Mom and I began making new traditions. Friday nights became takeout and movie nights. We repainted the living room one Saturday, blasting music and laughing when we ended up with paint on our faces. And one day, when Dad texted me asking if I wanted to meet up, I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. I'm not ready. And for the first time, I didn't feel guilty. Because I wasn't responsible for fixing what he broke. I wasn't responsible for his choices, his lies, his other life. I was responsible for me. For my healing. For my future. Months later, I ran into him at the grocery store. He was alone, standing in the cereal aisle. When he saw me, his face lit up like it used to, and for a second, I almost smiled back. Kiddo, he said softly, like the word might bring everything back. But it didn't. I nodded, polite, distant. We made small talk about school, about college plans. He asked if we could hang out sometime. I said maybe. When I walked away, my chest ached. Not with longing, but with something heavier, acceptance. Because the truth is, he'll always be my dad. A part of me will always love him. But I can't change what he did. I can't rewrite this story. What I can do is write the next chapter for myself. One where my worth isn't tied to his choices. One where I learned that sometimes, the people who promise to catch you will let you fall, but you can still get back up. And as I left the store that day, the sunlight spilling across the pavement, I realized something I never thought I'd believe. I may have lost the dad I thought I knew, but I didn't lose me. And that's enough.